Hey everybody, this is Pastor Jennifer and we want to welcome you into the break room. This is the day that the Lord has made. We are glad and we rejoice in it. We are so excited to have with us today Mr. Rafael Green.
Thank you.
Rafael, so good to have you back here in the break room.
It seems like it's been a long time.
I know, and it really hasn't been that long.
Right.
Yeah, but we had a lot of good response from the last time that you were here with us. And I'm always so grateful for people like yourself who give back to the community. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And so many times I have seen people go through grievous situations just because they didn't know what they needed to know. They didn't feel like they had access to the information they needed to, have access to. And many people have sustained loss and injury and had no means of, being compensated just because they didn't know what they needed to know. There are a lot of people who think they need to be rich and have lots of money in order to, attain an attorney. So we want to dispel some myths today and talk about knowing your rights, especially as it relates to personal injury. Things happen, beyond our control. And so we just want to kind of talk about some things and make sure that the people watching today know their rights and know the things that they have access to and how we should respond in certain situations.
I want to thank you for bringing me on again. I know last show we had, it was really good. I liked the conversation.
Yes, I did too.
I think we were both transparent in some issues, and I think a lot of people learned a lot of things. Now that the world has seemingly opened up more, we got people getting injured.
That's right.
We are community lawyers.
Yes.
And when I say we're community lawyers, that means that those individuals that we touch, they touch other individuals.
That's right.
And it's always good for them to have the knowledge.
Yes.
Because in so many instances, things happen and we just go on about our day like nothing has happened.
That's right.
And other individuals who know are being compensated for certain things.
That's right.
If you're injured and it's not your fault, you need to be compensated. We need you to get back to 100%. So that's what I'm here today for. I really want the people to know what they should do if they're injured. Injured at the fault of not just their own, but the fault of another. So today, whatever questions you have, I will be willing to answer. But definitely have some knowledge that, as the young people say, knowledge I want to drop on some folks.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's one thing, when you gain knowledge, we have a responsibility to share that with people, to always be giving a hand up. And, so let's talk a little bit about knowing your rights. Let's first define what is a personal injury claim or a personal injury lawsuit. And I know that the first step is not to file a lawsuit.
Right. That's what folks think sometimes.
Right. So let's kind of just start there.
Right. So a personal injury claim can be a number of things, but today we're just going to keep it very basic so we can know exactly what it is on the basic standpoint. So it's an accident that is, in my opinion, if you're going to call a lawyer, the fault of another, right? And you've sustained an injury. So we have a lot of accidents that happen, and there are no injuries. Well, there's no damages, so we can't recover for you, right? But if you have an accident or an incident, they're different. An accident or an incident where it's the fault of another, then and you have injuries, you should call an attorney, right? But before you call an attorney, it's always good that you do some things, right? Because accidents happen so fast, and especially if it's a rear-end collision or a car accident, you're kind of thrown off, and you really don't know what to do. So in the first instance, what I want to tell people to do is be calm.
Yes.
In any of these instances, an accident or an incident, an accident being something that happens by mistake, an incident, something that could have possibly been prevented, right? So in any of these situations, let's be calm, right? We see on TV, even here in Jackson, where you got individuals who get in a car accident and then it's a shootout.
Right.
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 So just realize that if you got insurance and the other individual got insurance, there's no reason for you to be angry.
Right.
Calm down. Right. And pull yourself together. All right. Because if you don't pull yourself together, the insurance company is going to pick up on it. If a witness tells the insurance company that, hey, this guy was at the scene and he was rowdy, he was ready to fight. Okay, where's the injury at that point?
That's right.
So it dispels the possibility of you having an injury. So first, I would tell everybody to be calm.
Right.
As possible.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We know sometimes, tempers flare if a child is injured, things of that nature, especially if it was someone being negligent, someone being irresponsible. Right. Then we understand, we are protective as it comes to our children, spouses, things of that nature. So the first thing is to remain calm.
Right.
I know people personally who have been hit. The issue was it was a hit and run. So someone hit their car and kept moving.
Angry.
So now this person who has insurance, is left to deal with that. I know someone else who got hit did not have insurance at the time, which we know is against the law in Mississippi. Everybody's supposed to have insurance. But for that individual, it left them not only in a situation where they didn't have their vehicle, now they can't get to work. And so they're left to try and figure all of this out. Right. So let's just kind of talk about that.
So it's funny you say that because I was thinking about an incident where it was a hit and run, and I had a client who they stayed in their car and got behind that person and tried to follow them.
No.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right. Do not.
So, and that's the thing. What I tell everybody that I know, my family, my friends, is to make sure you have uninsured motorist insurance.
Yes, and explain to the people what that is.
Uninsured motorist insurance and underinsured motorist insurance. It covers you if somebody hits you without insurance.
That's right.
Or if somebody hits you and leaves the scene. All right, so if somebody hits me and I have uninsured motorist insurance,
that's right,
and they leave the scene, I'm staying put. I'm calling the police. They're going to come, and my insurance company is going to cover it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So to answer your question, hit and run, you got to make sure that you got uninsured motorist insurance.
Right.
And I know that you said, someone didn't have insurance at all. I think there's a caveat to uninsured motorist insurance. If there is anybody in your home who has it and they're a family member, you are covered under their insurance policy as well.
Okay.
Say, for instance, a child or, a son goes out, drives his mother's car, not on the mother's insurance policy. He doesn't have an insurance policy to cover him, but he ends up getting hit by somebody. That person leaves the scene. Or the person stays there and doesn't have insurance.
Right.
Well, at that point, even though the child does not have insurance personally, they're covered under the parent's insurance policy. The uninsured motorist policy covers relatives or individuals in that home who live there. Now, if you don't live with your folks, if you don't live with your family, you can't be covered under it. But uninsured motorist insurance, make sure you get it. You got to have it.
Absolutely. I know for me, I had an incident where my car was parked in the parking lot of a particular store, big box store, and someone hit my car and left. So I was able to file that on my uninsured motorist because they hit me, left the scene, left no information.
Yes.
And obviously my car has been hit. So, thankfully for me, I had uninsured motorist.
And let's dispel a myth about, your insurance policy. There's a lot of individuals out there who don't want to file claims on their insurance because they believe that their insurance premiums will go up. In some instances, it will. If you are at fault, your insurance premium is going to go up. If your kid is in an accident in your car and they're at fault, your insurance premium is going to go up. If you get a speeding ticket, your insurance premium is going to go up. But if you're in an accident and it's not your fault, your insurance premium shouldn't go up. And what I tell the viewers is if it does go up, just switch insurance companies.
There you go.
There's so many of of them out there.
Absolutely.
So make sure that, you know, if it does go up at a certain point in time, we can switch insurance companies. So don't let them keep you in that position where you don't feel like you can use what the insurance is for.
That's right.
It's for you to use.
That's what it's for. That's right. You're paying a premium every month, every 6 months, once a year, to make sure, you know, you pray that you don't need it.
Right.
But it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Most definitely. And when I have it and something happens, I'm using it.
Absolutely. Because you've been paying for it.
I'm telling you. You pay $400 a month on your insurance premium.
Absolutely.
I'm using that.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So we're talking about, number one, having insurance. Number two, we're talking about it if an accident occurs, to stay calm.
Most definitely.
All right. So behind that, what's the next step?
All right. So we need to make sure we call the authorities.
Okay. Call the authorities.
Sometimes we got individuals who are at fault. They'll get out of the car and say, "Hey, Miss So-and-so, I'm so sorry for what just happened. I can cover the damages. I got cash. I know somebody who, you know, owns a body shop who can fix the damages. I can pay you this, that, and the other. Don't call the police." Well, they ask you not to call the police because they stuff not right.
Right. And you need to call them.
You need to call the police because that person may be lying.
Right.
First and foremost.
Right.
And then second, you want to make sure you get it documented. Right. Whatever happened, you want the police officer to document it. Tell your side of the story. Right. If there are witnesses out on the scene, we're going to make sure we get witness statements. We're going to make sure we talk to anybody who's out there who saw it. Because I've seen too often that individuals go file a claim and the person who was at fault, they lied. Right. So to combat their lie, we have witnesses. Yeah. All right.
Or people say they have insurance and they don't have it. It's lapsed or they never did have it.
It happens every day. Yeah. It happens every day. I just got a call last week. Somebody said, "Hey, I was injured pretty bad in this accident." I said, "Hey, did the individual have insurance?" "I don't know. I didn't check at the scene." "Did the officer come out?" "No, the officer didn't come out." So at that point, we got to track somebody down. Right. We got to do a background search and see if these individuals had insurance. So when we're at the scene, we make sure we call the authorities because first, you just never know what mindset that other individual is in. Right. Who's at fault. Secondly, the individual may lie. Yeah. And then third, we want to make sure that we get down what actually happened. Right. So when your attorney gets the accident report, we can show that the other person is at fault. So make sure you call the authorities. Right. And then, you know, I would always make sure I call the ambulance. Yeah. Because you never know. Right?
You don't.
You never know.
People can have internal injuries.
Yes.
And not necessarily know it at the time. Right. And then it can hit them a little while later and they're in a life-threatening situation.
I'll tell you something. This is a personal experience, and it's about adrenaline, right? I was in a rear-end collision. I was in high school, just started driving a stick shift. And my uncle was trying to teach me. I ended up coming off the clutch too fast, car stalled. And somebody wasn't paying attention, rear-ended me. You know, I got out, I'm like, "Hey, it's all good," because I was scared. I was young. My uncle like, "Hey, he's good. We're just going to keep on going." But now I got a nagging back pain. Okay. And guess what I'm attributing it to? That accident. Yeah. I'm attributing it to that accident, but I didn't seek treatment when it happened. I didn't file it on anybody's insurance. And now I have this nagging back pain. Right. So we want to make sure that when something like that happens, we get the medical technicians out there to see what's going on because you never know. And adrenaline will keep you going until you go rest at night. Right. You know, we watch the Discovery Channel and you see a deer, get injured and they continue to run and they continue to run. It's that adrenaline that's pumping. That's right. So when you get hit in a car accident, that adrenaline takes over and you really don't feel the pain that you're probably going to feel the next day. Even when you go to the hospital that day, the doctor will let you know that, hey, even though you're not feeling bad today, tomorrow's going to be a little bit worse. We'll prescribe you some naproxen for swelling. We'll prescribe you some pain pills because you're going to be in pain tomorrow. That's how it normally works. So we make sure we call AMR to the scene. I know some people, "I don't want the ambulance bill." Hey, if we got insurance, we're going to make sure we call AMR because we want to make sure everybody's okay, especially if you got passengers. Little kids, they need to be checked out because you never know. You don't want them to get older and you look back on this day and say, maybe this was the day that caused what's going on. So,
So my dad was in a car accident many years ago. And he and the gentleman who was driving at the time were hit head on at an intersection. And, you know, it was a bad accident. But everybody left and walked away. But later on that evening, my dad just was not feeling right. And I said, well, where are you hurting? And where he showed me on his side, I could see bruising underneath the skin. And so we just kept prompting him to go to the emergency room. And they said if we had been an hour later, he would have been dead. His spleen was ruptured. Had to have major surgery. You know, so it was one of those things where on the outside, he looked fine. But it's just as the day went, and it's that thing you're talking about, the adrenaline, the rush. You're trying to make sure everybody's okay. He was a passenger. You know, and the thing for him, he didn't even know the accident was getting ready to occur because he had his head down reading. And so the accident occurred, but it was from the seatbelt. But had he not been wearing the seatbelt, you know, he could have gone through the windshield, something else. So it's just another one of those situations where things can appear to be well on the outside, but it's still best to go and get things checked out.
What I'm talking about is a minor collision. I mean, if we have enough impact and we start shaking up the brain, we're talking about concussions at that point. And people don't realize they have concussions until the next day or the day after.
That's right.
Or the week after. So when I go to the hospital after an accident, you got to give me the full workup.
Absolutely.
Hey, let me know what's going on with me. I need a brain X-ray. I need an X-ray. I need a CT scan. I want to make sure that I'm fine. So down the line, I won't be regretting that I didn't get seen about.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So we want to make sure that we do what you did with your father. Push your relatives, if they've been in an accident, to go to the hospital because you never know.
That's right. That's right. And like I say, he ended up having major surgery, was down for some time. You know, so it was one of those situations where he needed to be compensated.
Most definitely.
You know,
most definitely.
And so we did that. Talking about people fleeing the scene. So you said if they flee, do not follow.
Don't follow.
Because you don't know where they're going. You don't know if they have a weapon. You just don't know. And you're not trained. You're not a police officer. So that's not your job.
No, that is not your job.
But what you can do is try to get tag information, make and model of the car, a description of the people in the car. Those kinds of things. Yes,
because what's happened before is those individuals that flee the scene, it may just be somebody who shouldn't be driving. Doesn't mean the car doesn't have insurance. So yes, make sure you're cognizant and make sure you stay calm, pull it together, and get the tag number. Don't chase after them. Don't give chase. Please don't. Do the best that you can to remember the make and model of the car, get the tag number, but don't give chase. Call the police, let them know that there was a hit and run, give them the make and model of the car and the tag number, and then they'll put out a bolo for the vehicle. Let them handle their business. Let them do what they do. All right.
And so what if an accident occurs and you're, in a parking lot of, Walmart, Target, stores of this nature, big box stores. I know the answer, but I want the people to know the answer.
It's a little bit different. And I wish it wasn't like this because you got so many people who weasel out of, liability this way. But, if it happens at Walmart or a parking lot that is a privately owned parking lot or a driveway at somebody's house or the church for that matter, police will not come out and do an incident report. They will not do it. So what you got to do is make sure you dot your I's and cross all your T's. Make sure you get witnesses. That's what we want. That is the best thing to have if something happens.
If they have a camera system.
So exactly. Make sure you call. You can still call the ambulance. They'll come out. Then you can tell the technician your issues. So make sure we get as much evidence as we can. The more you bring me, the better.
That's right.
So if you turn to me and say, "Hey, it happened at Walmart. Police didn't come out, but I got this. I got a video. Okay, I got photos. I got so and so witness. I had somebody go in and run back the cameras." Perfect.
And let me encourage every pastor, if you can, get cameras at your church. You think that because it's a church, people are not going to, but we've had individuals to try to say their vehicle was damaged at church. And it was only the camera that saved us. Right. Because we were able to get it on camera. That damage was there when you came.
Oh, wow.
We have had situations where someone hit someone's car at church. Right. And we were able to pull the camera, and find out who did it.
Having those resources is very, very important.
Absolutely.
Even at your home, I would make sure, we'll get to that later when we talk about slip and falls, but having a surveillance system at your home will keep down on people filing false claims. Right. Because anybody can say they tripped over, a rock at your house and messed their knee up, and in all actuality, they did it while they were at the park. Right. So make sure that you have those resources. It's good that we have those resources because folks will lie on you.
Absolutely. In a minute. So, and there are some people, this is certainly not everybody, but there are some people, they're looking to make a living off of filing lawsuits.
And I'm telling you, it gives them a bad reputation, and also gives the attorney a bad reputation when you continue to file lawsuits on behalf of somebody who is just, it's frivolousness. Right. And at a certain point, the court can do something about that. If they find out that, hey, this person is just faking, they're filing these false claims, the attorney can get sanctioned, and also that client can get sanctioned. We can be forced to pay money to the court or to the opposing party for bringing them in court over a false claim. So I'm speaking to the attorneys now. Make sure you vet your cases, vet your clients.
Absolutely.
Because you never know.
Absolutely.
You never know. I see it all. I promise you, I see it all. Yeah.
So let's say you have an accident, we want you to remain calm. We want you to get the required information, but also you want to make sure everybody at the scene is okay. You want to see who needs treatment. And so we talked about calling the ambulance just to make sure everybody gets checked out, especially if it's not just a low fender. Right. The more intense the accident, you definitely need to make sure everybody's okay. Call for help. Right. Identify witnesses. Of course. Those who stop, those who pull over.
Oh, you turned into a personal injury attorney. I like
it. What else?
Well, if the ambulance doesn't come to the scene, of course, make sure you go to the hospital. Right. And go to the hospital to get the full workup. And then after you leave the hospital, make sure you call an attorney, an experienced attorney, somebody who knows what they're doing. And they're going to get you back 100%, back to 100%. Because that's the thing. I think that a lot of folks come in, and of course, they just want money. They want money. Right. No, I want you to be 100% better. I want physically, mentally, and monetarily. Right. So make sure you call an attorney because I'm telling you, when you get on the phone with those insurance companies, they record everything. Right. And that's my next thing. Don't talk to insurance adjusters, please. Please don't. They record everything and they hold everything against you. I got a case right now where, I thought I got the case first. The person called me when they left the hospital. Well, in all actuality, insurance company calls them. This is for 18-wheeler company. Calls them and says, hey, I heard you were in an accident. We're willing to offer you such and such. And they say, well, I'm really not that hurt, but so when you start talking that way, even if you're not accepting the money that they offer you, they got it recorded and they're going to use it later. So when we get before a jury and I say, hey, this person has $100,000 in meds and needs future meds because of their injuries, they say, okay, wait, jury. They're telling you this. When the accident first happened, he said he was all right. Right. So we're not talking to insurance companies. Right. Not at all. And then if you, at a certain point, they say, well, it's my insurance company. It's uninsured motorists that I'm going under. So, they're for me, right? No, they're not for you.
The insurance company is always for the insurance company.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're looking for ways to save money, right? So if you call, yes, they're going to sound all sweet. Yay, so-and-so, how you doing? We're going to get you put in the car. We're going to make sure your car is fixed. And then you go to the hospital. Just let us know what your bills are. And when you go to the hospital and you start sending them the bills, they say, well, hey, this was just a soft tissue injury. Right. You shouldn't be feeling this way. Based on the other 100 cases that I had, you shouldn't be treating this long. Right. And then they'll stop paying for your treatment. And then they make you settle for pennies on the dollar. Right. So we're not talking to the insurance company. Let the attorney do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so many times you got folks out here who think those accidents are just so small and that insurance companies will do them right. I promise you, they will jerk you around.
Oh, absolutely.
They will jerk you around if you let them.
And they're trying to close the case.
They are.
I mean, quicker than you can even get quotes and proposals and those kinds of things, and they're trying to close that case.
Yes, that's one of the reasons that I went into personal injury law, is because I had so many folks who had been in incidents where they've been railroaded. And I give you, for instance, had a relative who was on a train. Train had some type of mishap. He wasn't very badly injured, but they had insurance adjusters on the scene. Wow. Writing checks.
No.
Yes.
So you haven't even had a chance to be checked out yet.
No, you haven't.
Wow.
On the scene writing checks, right? And you also with some of these airports too, like when things happen, you got insurance adjusters out there on the scene writing checks, trying to make sure you sign releases so you won't be able to file a lawsuit in the future, right? And
that's another thing. You shouldn't sign a release right away, because you really, especially if you do have an injury, because you really don't know, the long-term effects of that injury, especially when you get into back, hips, neck, those kinds of things.
I mean, insurance companies have gotten slick. They started doing releases now where they'll say, hey, Pastor, we'll give you a $5,000 check, and we'll pay up to $10,000 in your medical bill, right? That's a $15,000 settlement.
Which is nothing, because an MRI alone, when you start getting into having to have diagnostic testing done and some of those kinds of things, $15,000 is nothing. One night in the hospital.
Can cost $15,000.
Right, absolutely. Right. An emergency room visit.
Yes, can cost $15,000.
Yeah, so it's nothing. People are looking at that thinking, I can do this, or I can No.
Yes. And my thing is, if you got a $15,000 ER bill, that means you need some more treatment after.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to be honest.
Absolutely.
If you stay in the hospital overnight after an accident, that means you need more treatment, whether it be physical therapy or a chiropractor. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but from what I've seen, the longer you stay in the hospital, the more tests they run. The doctors, they see something, and then they'll send you home because it's the ER. But if you look at the diagnostic at the very end, it always says follow up with regular treating physician.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
We want to make sure we follow up.
And they're going to order their own tests.
Exactly.
They're going to give you their prescription.
Right. And $15,000 not covering that.
It's not.
So we want to make sure that we're not talking to insurance companies. We're not signing documents before we finish treatment. And we're not accepting pennies on the dollar. Right. Yeah. Right. So, in that instance, I think that's about it. Before you get to calling an attorney, I think that's everything you could possibly need. Yeah. But if you go to the opposite side on the slip and fall cases, it changes up just a little bit. Okay. Right.
And so let's talk about that.
So in slip and fall cases, or cases that happen on somebody else's property, normally it happens in a store. When you fall, stay calm, right? Because your adrenaline or your you feeling embarrassed, your embarrassment will make you jump up real quick,
right,
and see who saw it,
right.
No, stay down and make sure you're good. Yeah. All right, because at that point, your embarrassment, adrenaline kicks in, and I've seen older people fall to the ground and jump back up. I'm like, oh my God, how did they do that? It's the adrenaline and it's the embarrassment that kicks in. So we want to make sure in that situation we also stay calm. But after staying calm, we want to make sure that we see if any witnesses saw it. Right. So maybe some folks around laughing, but those folks saw it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if they saw it, we need to get their name, get their phone number, and they need to have seen that substance on the floor that you slipped on.
Yeah. Right. And the thing too, I've seen people jump up not realizing they had hurt an ankle or hurt a leg, a wrist, things
Right.
of that, and they got up real
Yes.
quick and injured it further.
Right.
Because they didn't take time to wait and see, okay, am I okay? Can I move?
Yeah, I mean, look at me. I'm a big man, almost 300 pounds. What do I look like hitting the ground and jumping back up?
Yeah.
Without making sure I'm okay. If I jump back up, I may tear a meniscus.
Right.
So yeah, we're gonna take our time. And if witnesses are around, we want to make sure that they saw what happened, and we want to make sure we get their contact information. Right. Next, we want to make sure that we tell a manager what happened. Right. We got folks who will leave and they'll go to the hospital and then call back to the store and say, "Hey, I fell in the store earlier today. Blah blah blah. Did you see this? Is it on camera?" And the management company is going to say, "Oh no, we don't have cameras. The camera on that aisle wasn't working." Right. So we want to make sure before we leave, if we can, because in some instances we're hurt so badly where we need emergency treatment. Right. Right. So, but if you can, make sure that we talk to a manager or an owner. Right. Okay. And that manager or an owner, in my opinion, needs to write down certain information. Right. And they put it on what we call an incident report. All right. So if you do later file a claim, that incident report will, say who the witnesses are, also say exactly what happened. And I would specifically make sure it says what type of substance was on the floor. Okay. Right. Because
whether that be water, cleaning fluid,
most definitely,
a spill from somebody dropped a carton of milk, or
if it's Clorox, I had an individual, slip and fall on some Clorox, and
we know how slippery that is.
I'm telling you, and they wanted to go home and wash clothes. No, we don't want to wash those clothes. We want to keep those clothes. We want to keep all the evidence from that day, because if we show that your clothes are now bleached from slipping in the Clorox, then, we can tie it all together and we can show that, because what they'll try to do is say, no, it wasn't this. No, it wasn't that. You must be mistaken. But the more evidence we have to present to them, the more money you're going to get and the quicker they'll be to settle it. Okay. So we want to make sure we don't throw away anything. We don't tamper with your shoes. Don't tamper with your clothing. Make sure you keep all that stuff bagged up. So go back at the beginning. We want to stay calm. Right. You don't want to get embarrassed and jump back up. Want to make sure we get as many witnesses as we can. We want to make sure we talk to owners or managers about what happened. And we want to make sure that we don't throw away our clothes. Right. And then we want to make sure that we go to the hospital. Right. Because you got folks who say, well, I just fell, I fall every now and then, and I'll get over it, and they hip, start hurting the next day, and then the next day you start seeing them limping.
Especially for the elderly.
Right. They start limping, and then they go to a hospital a week later, and that's something I need to hit on really quickly. If you're in an accident or have an incident, want to make sure you go as soon as possible, because what the insurance company looks at is the time of service, the time you went without treatment. So if the accident happened and you don't go to the hospital, I say, well, you must have talked to an attorney and they told you to go. They start throwing out things that will sway a jury, right? Ultimately, as trial lawyers, we think about how the case is going to end at the jury level, right? At verdict, not in the claims process. Of course, an early settlement is good, but I'm thinking about trying this case. So if you don't go to the hospital immediately, remember that jurors are going to be able to hear that, right? So we can claim that we in pain, claim that, that we've been suffering. But if we didn't go to the hospital initially until a month later,
or 90 days later.
It's going to draw questions. Right. And then they're going to look at me crazy. They already look at an attorney crazy because they think we out here ambulance chasing. Right. But in any event, it's going to be some speculation there. So we want to leave the doubt outside. Right. So after an incident, let's just make sure we go to the hospital. Make sure we get seen about. That brings the next, on the slip and fall side, make sure the same thing. We don't talk to insurance adjusters. In these cases, they ask, "What's your theory of liability?" My thing is, how is a layperson going to know what a theory of liability is? Right. But they ask those questions, and people try to answer them. And they try to hold that against the person who failed.
Right.
So we want to make sure that before we speak to an insurance adjuster that we call a competent attorney. Because most times these folks will railroad you. That is their job to make sure that they settle the case before an attorney gets involved. That is their job to do that. It's their job to save as much money. It's crazy how people will try to do a case on their own, settle a case on their own. And they come in my office and I say, okay, well, I just send a letter of rep and I'll see how much they put on the table. And they ought to put another $4,000 or $5,000 on the table. That's crazy. It makes no sense. That means that $4,000 or $5,000 was already on the table for you. You could have gotten it, but they didn't offer it to you. So their job is to save money. So we make sure we don't talk to insurance adjusters in either of these situations.
Absolutely. And so, like, if you're in a store and you see the signage that says floor wet, then that's up to you to avoid that area because they've done their due diligence in saying, hey, caution, the floor is wet. We don't want you to slip and fall. Where the issue comes is when there's water on the floor, there's no signage, there's nothing to draw your attention to the fact that this area is not safe, then there's negligence there. But as long as they're doing due diligence,
if
then
they do their job now. It's some people who don't do their job past that.
And I know.
And have those those signs up. I've seen. I won't call the restaurant out, but they just keep the sign up the whole time, right? And the floor is actually not wet, but it's there the whole entire time, right? Nobody is coming by to make sure that it's slippery or not slippery. They can't avoid it if the sign is there the whole time. But some businesses do their due diligence, and when they mop, they put down the signs. And if you walk through the area and you fall, it's gonna be hard to prove your case.
And I know sometimes I've gone into some of the hardware stores, and they may be putting things up on a high shelf, and they'll block that aisle off. And that's saying, hey, stay off of this aisle. We're doing work.
That don't happen at the dollar stores.
It don't. Something could potentially fall. So stay out of this area. But then I've seen times where I was like, people don't need to be on this aisle now, because I think in terms of liability, because I'm a business owner, and just from life experiences. But there are so many times where due diligence is not being exercised, and then that becomes great liability because when people fall and get hurt,
and my thing is, hey, don't be afraid to file a claim. You got too many people come in and say, well, I shop at this store all the time. If they didn't do their job and you're injured, file a claim. And we got a lot of elderly people who are in car accidents, and I don't know what it is. And my grandmama didn't tell me this, but what is it about elderly people and not wanting to file lawsuits? It's just something about it. And I understand every time I get an elderly person to come in, we have to just explain to them, hey, actually this person is not going to be on the line personally. They have insurance. And most of the time, if somebody comes in and there's no insurance and we got an elderly person, I say, we won't even sue. We'll just leave it alone. Just to make sure that they're okay. But in most instances, when you are suing somebody, it is the entity or the person that's going to show up in the lawsuit, but the person who's going to cover it is the insurance company. If you sue me, if I hit you, sue me. I'm being honest. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. Sue me, and my insurance is going to take care of it. So when you got, like I said, and they've passed that same thing down to kids. I don't want to sue so and so. I don't want to sue this person. I just don't believe in suing.
And I'll tell you, some of that comes because there's scripture in the Bible that talks about a brother taking a brother before the court. And so what it's basically saying is that Christians should be able to work things out with Christians. But it's not speaking to these, big companies and things. This is like your next door neighbor. And, when things happen, you guys should be able to work that out.
Most definitely.
I should have a heart for you that if I did something to you, I should be willing to make reparations and to make sure you're restored back to where you were before the injury.
Okay.
And so that's where a lot of that comes from.
I get it.
It's being trained in the Word of God and saying, hey, I shouldn't take my brother. I shouldn't take my sister, to court.
Totally
and I believe that, if people in the church come to me, I believe those two people ought to be, and that's more
Most
of,
definitely.
smaller things, you bumped into me, these kinds of things.
Right.
But they're kind of mixing it all together. In saying,
I get it.
Oh, we shouldn't.
I get it.
And so the Bible never tells us we shouldn't utilize the court because they utilize the courts in the Bible.
Right.
There were kings, there were judges in the Bible who made these kinds of decisions. There was divorce in the Bible.
Right. It was.
So all of these things are mentioned, but sometimes it's our interpretation of what we're reading or taking things out of context and not getting a full understanding. Yes. And the reason why I say this, I know you're not an ambulance chaser. No. There are some out there.
There are.
But every attorney is not that. But I've seen people like elderly individuals have an accident where they were not at fault. Someone else was irresponsible, breaking the law in the first place, hit this elderly person. This is somebody on a fixed income, and I've just seen the way their lives have been affected. Right. Sometimes the lives of children, grandchildren. All of this started with one incident where someone was negligent, irresponsible, and throwing caution to the wind. But this person is having to deal with all that. Right. And so I definitely think that there are situations where, you need to call an attorney. You need to have someone who is more knowledgeable in the law to represent you at the point that you have become a victim.
Most definitely. And I totally agree with the snowballing out of control deal. Like I said before, if there is insurance, it will cover it.
Yes. Right? And that's why we have it.
Right. Yeah. We want to make sure that we use it. All right. And I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because of what it does, it gives me more patience.
That's right.
When I'm dealing with clients.
That's right.
So somebody, hey, I really don't want to sue because this and the other. It says, okay, Ralph, I know where it comes from.
That's right.
So I appreciate you telling me that.
And you can go and read it and read the context and be able to have that conversation. Right. Because you share these values. Right. They're biblical values.
Most definitely.
But so many times people have been mistaught.
Right.
Or they've just misunderstood what has been taught.
Most definitely.
When you know where a thing comes from, it's easier to have that conversation.
You know that I'm going to cut that clip. I'm cutting that clip.
I'm going to look the scripture up and give it to you before you leave, and we're going to share it with the audience.
I appreciate it. I'm going to cut that clip, and then when I have somebody come to my office who has a question, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it, and I'll make sure I got you. I look out for you on the back end. Every time I play it, I look out for you.
Well, here's the thing for me. Raphael, the Bible says, Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God, His righteousness. All these other things will be added to you. So for me, I first go to the word. What does the word say concerning this situation? Right. When I know what God's word says concerning a situation, then I know what my approach should be. Most definitely. And if my approach lines up with the biblical approach, I know God's hand is there. Right. I know God's blessing is there. Now, if I'm trying to do something contrary to the way the word told me to do it, or if I'm taking advantage of someone, or I am, mishandling a situation and being unfair to someone, then I already know God's not obligated to me in that situation because I did that to myself. Yes. I'm grateful for God's grace and God's mercy, but I'm one of those people, I believe, when you know better, you do better.
Most definitely.
And
I agree wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. So for me, I want to do right by people, but I hate to see people victimized. Yes. And I hate to see people thrown in a cycle of poverty due to something that could have been avoided because someone else was negligent.
Right. And that will happen, especially with the elderly individuals. You got somebody, when they see that they're elderly, they'll lead a scene.
Yeah, the elderly, young children, teenagers. Sometimes that license is new. Right. They're driving that car for the first time by themselves. Right. They're nervous.
I would say somebody took advantage of me in that accident, but
that
was me. That was I was just scared. And I had somebody with me that if they would have known let's just say, hey, no, we're just gonna stay at the scene. Let's make sure.
Yeah, and and my family's the same way. I've had people who in my family, have been hit, who have had different things happen to them, and they're like, well, we're not going to sue anybody.
Right,
It is what it is. I'll suck it up. I'll take that hit.
Understood.
But you can only take so many hits.
Right.
And you can only, so at a point you have to do some things differently.
Right. Most definitely.
My mother was rear-ended by a double 18-wheeler.
Oh, wow.
The person driving the 18-wheeler was on his phone. Rear-ended her, totaled the vehicle. Fortunately, she did not sustain a lot of injuries, but she sustained a couple of injuries. And, she settled way too quick because she just wanted to be done with it. It was a lot of frustration for her. Right. But long story short, she had some things to come up later that were a direct result of that accident. And she had already signed off. Right. And so it was money out of her pocket that shouldn't have had to be, especially at her age. Right.
And I'll tell you this too, that, when you, depending on the type of accident, sometimes it becomes a headache. Yeah. Right. Literally. And I'm telling you, in this profession, I've learned patience. Yeah. Not only from clients calling, wanting to know, what's going on and when am I going to get my money, but, having relatives who've been in that same situation, who just want it to be over. I've had so many folks say, hey, I just want it to be over.
And that was her.
Right. So I totally understand. You can't get mad at somebody, if they want it to be over and, they're getting hit. It's affecting them adversely. Yeah. So it's some people, if they don't want to go through the claims process, I totally understand it. I just want the people to know that there is money. There is money out there to cover your damages.
That's right.
And if you choose to go that route, I want you to know how to do it.
That's right.
Right.
That's
right. But yes, this profession has taught me to be patient.
But I tell you, people like you are so needed, and this is one of the things I was ministering this past Sunday. There are people who are called. Yep. Just like there are people who are called to preach the gospel, there are people who are called to medicine. There are people who are called to law. Right. There are people who are, and thank God that when someone like myself, or someone else needs some type of legal representation, there are people like you who are out there who are integrous, who love the Lord, who want to do things right, but you're there to serve the needs of the community. Most definitely. And so it means a lot to have people like you in place to represent and to make sure people are not wrongfully taken advantage of. Right. And that when people need to be compensated for things, there's someone who will fight for them.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you again for having me. I didn't know that it was gonna. It feels like it was, months. Months ago when we said it. Yeah. But I just appreciate the platform.
Well, I appreciate you coming and being willing to give of your knowledge to help people. Right. And prayerfully for those who need some help, they're going to come see Gilmer Green. Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. But, whether they come see you or whoever they come to see, at least you're giving the knowledge. At least they'll know. And they know what to do.
Right. I just want you to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and I want you to know that those things are out there. To cover your damages. I mean, just having the knowledge, in my opinion, is more than anything. And if you choose to use the knowledge, absolutely fine. If you choose not to, fine. But at least you know. Yes, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. I won't be punished for not telling you.
That's right. That's right. Well, look, I want to thank you for taking the time, for coming to share this information so that people will know their rights as it relates to personal injury, whether that be accident, incident, slip and falls, whatever the situation may be. And so thank you for coming. We're going to put your information there at the bottom of the screen if there's somebody who needs legal representation. Yes. Shameless plug, this is a member of my church, a son of the house. And so obviously I want to bless the people who bless the body of Christ. And so, but you don't only do personal injury, you do other things. So just very quickly, give us a rundown of the kinds of things you do. When you were here before, we were talking about about end of life decisions and things of that nature. But let the people know what you do.
So, of course, I do personal injury cases. I do medical malpractice cases as well. Domestic relations. And that deals with child custody, divorces, visitation, child support. Also deal with probate matters. That's what we talked about last time.
That's right.
Conservatorships.
When someone passes.
Guardianships. Before those things, and like I tell everybody to do, make sure you get a last will and testament.
Yeah, before you're sick.
Before you're sick.
Before you're in hospice care.
Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And make sure you get a health care directive.
Yes.
All those things fall under probate.
Someone who can make decisions on your behalf.
Right. So, call ourselves community attorneys. We are general practitioners.
Yes.
We do just about everything. If you have a legal matter, something that you can't figure out, give me a call. And if I can't do it, I know somebody who does.
Yeah. And even guardianships. I've had to temporarily get guardianship of a child.
To put them in school.
That's right, to put them in school. It wasn't a long-term situation. But just to be able to get them registered, get them in school, and, get the needed things.
In most cases, it's just the filing of a petition.
Right.
You take the petition to the school, and then they'll say, hey, that person can come.
Yes.
So, a lot of these things are very inexpensive. The last will and testament, inexpensive. The healthcare directive, inexpensive. Those things are things that I think everybody should have. Everybody who is in sound mind and who's not sick already. Let's get the last will and testament done. Let's make sure we get the healthcare directive done. I'm not the only attorney, here in Jackson, but by all means, if you need that work done, give me a call. My phone number is 769-208-8122. Yes. So if you guys need anything.
Yes.
If you know anybody, send them my way.
And I do, and I have, because, I know as a pastor, and I'm sure there are plenty of pastors who are out there who are watching, this is something I'm constantly putting before the people, Rafael, because so many times things come up and we're not expecting them to come up when they do.
Right.
Nobody expects to have a car accident. Nobody expects to have a stroke.
Right.
Nobody expects to have, a heart attack, an aneurysm. But these things happen. Yeah. They happen unannounced, unexpectedly. Yeah. And sometimes in the matter of a moment, someone is no longer to make decisions for themselves. And so it's very difficult for that family. Right. You're already having to deal with what has happened with this loved one. Now you're put in a position where you're having to make decisions and you're saying, we've never had this conversation. Right. I don't know if he wanted to be on life support. Right. I don't know if this, and so these are conversations, though they're not comfortable, we don't like. These are conversations we have to have, and we have to have them sooner rather than later because the peace comes when you have had the conversation.
Yes.
And you're doing what that individual wanted done.
Most definitely.
And so it doesn't mean you're not still, managing emotions and those kinds of things, but it's easier to manage when you know what they wanted and you're able to carry that out.
It's easier to have a path to go down.
Yes, absolutely.
And if they've laid that path, and you're walking down that path, I mean, folks may be mad, but those are their wishes. That's what they wanted.
That's right. And there are a lot of people that I know who sometimes don't seek the advice of an attorney or the services of an attorney because they say, well, I don't have $700 right now, or I don't have $1,500 right now, or I don't, number one, you don't know how much it's going to be until you call.
Right.
Every will doesn't cost the same amount of money. Right. Every health care, it all depends on what's in there and how it's being done. But I know some attorneys work out payment plans, things of that nature. Yes. So whoever you are, at least have the conversation. At least have the initial consult. And then you can go from there to see what needs to be done.
Yep.
So. Yep. All right. Well, look, I appreciate you so much. And I'm going to have you to come back.
I know.
All right.
I'm ready.
Well, I appreciate you so much.
No, I thank you for having me. It was enjoyable. Every time we talk, it just seems like we're talking as friends. And I appreciate,
and we are. Absolutely.
I appreciate the platform and I appreciate the table that you've allowed me to sit at. I think that we've put out some good information.
I do too. And I appreciate you taking the time to come
anytime.
and listen. Yeah.
Anytime.
All right.
I promise you.
Well, I'm going to take you up on it.
And you took me on the last one. Make sure I hold my word.
All right. All right. Yeah. Well, listen, I pray that you guys have been blessed by the information that we have shared on today. If you have been, take the time to share this with a friend. Tag someone in this particular post. Put their name down there in the comments and give us feedback. Let us know if there's anything that we haven't covered that you would like for us to cover in the future as it relates to legal matters, health matters, accidents, incidents, slips and falls, whatever. Let us know what you need to be better informed about, and we'll make sure we bring that information to you. But look, I thank you for taking the time to join with us today, and we're looking for you to join with us next week, same time, same place. Until then, it is my sincere prayer that God's absolute best will be yours in every area of your life. Y'all go make today a great day. See you next week.